if this tree is sin and it represents sin, and then it germinates, it's kind of what we experience every single day of our life. We can see that there is good in others, right? Every single, I would say, even the worst person in the planet of the earth, there has to be something good about them. Why? Because God created them in his image to be good. So it's innate in us that God created us with the intention for us to be good, but our existence is within a broken and fallen place. And therefore, it's like what Paul talks about. We do the very things that we don't want to do, and we don't do the very things that we do want to do that are for good. And so the tension lies in us living in this space between being created as something good, an image bearer of God, but existing in a world and in a brokenness that rubs off on us.
I started to study psychology when I first went away to school. It was
Yeah.
too much for me. I was starting to, diagnose everybody around me. That wasn't good for any of us. And so I stepped away from psychology. But when I did study psychology, there's something fascinating about nature versus nurture. The nature of us being good because God created us to be like him. The nurture of us being the response to being born into a sinful and fallen world. I think that what is hard, and when I say that tension point is for me, is it's the morality tension point, right? Am I good or am I bad? Let me take it a step further, because I think that these are the things that start to oppose, right? We talk about Brene Brown a lot. I am a student of Brene Brown. I really love her work, and I think she does incredible things. I recently read The Gifts of Imperfection, which is an incredible book that I highly, highly recommend. There's a part where she talks about the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt, I
Yeah.
did something bad. Shame, I am bad.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
think that this is like where we get this rub. Back to that scripture you were talking about, that Paul said, I do not what I want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I don't know that I truly believe we're innately bad, but I do believe we have the capacity to do bad as a result of the brokenness, as a result of the nurture, as a result of the world that we fell in. But I think every decision in our lives is going to present us with an opportunity to choose. Are we going to choose the path in which we're hardwired and for good, or are we going to choose the path in which we're nurtured, or we're learned to do or be bad or respond to bad? And so I think that we're always going to have that tension in us. And when we lean to do something bad, oftentimes I think it makes us question our identity. Are we
Yeah,
bad?
that's it. That's
And
it.
and and so that morality tension, I think, is a um a scheme of the enemy. In a lot of ways, he knew what he was doing, because by us having this knowledge of good and evil, it would make us question who we are. Yes, it made us question who God was initially, but it also would make us question our own identity. It would also make us question our morality. It would make us question every single decision, thought, action, word that comes from us from that point on. When I think about specifically that moment, I believe, and I've said this before, we were not supposed to eat from that tree, because we were never going to be good judges of good
Hmm.
and evil. We were never going to be good judges of good and bad. We cast judgment all the time. I am constantly assessing my own morality. Yes, the morality of others, but my own morality and my own identity. How can I be this deeply flawed, yet how can I also be so deeply loved? Because I think the hardest part about this conversation of morality is my knowledge of Christ in it all.
Right, right.
Because that then makes me think differently. I could just be like, oh yeah, I'm wired for bad. It's easy to go do the things, whatever. But when I realize I'm loved and that there's grace
Mm.
available to me, and like that right there is what makes me hit that tension point. Like, oh wait, so I am worthy of love. I am enough. I do have the
Mhm.
capacity for good. I can choose what
Mhm.
I know feels good to me, not always choose what is easy or what the
Yeah.
world feels like it's pulling me towards. The hardest part in that morality, that tension of my morality, though, is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, E. How can I extend myself grace and affirm that I am loved, yet still hold myself accountable without judging myself too harshly? Because I think there is accountability. I do think there's consequence, but I also think that we're loved and we are deserving of grace. And so how can those things coexist? Because the identity piece, yes, is causing a tension, but that tension impacts so many other areas, specifically my response to the decisions I make. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that it starts back, coming back to the creation story and using the imagery of the table, which, if you look at our logo, it's the table. I like to think in the beginning, God created this big, beautiful table where we're all seen, we're all loved, we're all heard. There's good food, there's good conversation, and we are in a place of total belonging. And in our lives, we at some point stop believing, or we're tempted to stop believing that we belong. And we start to try to go fit in, and not to just keep quoting Brene Brown, but we do both love her. Brene Brown would say that fitting in is when you want to be a part of something, and belonging is when you're actually wanted. And we don't believe that we're wanted, so we spend our time trying to fit in. And it's because of that insecurity in us that it causes us to search for things and cope with things, and therefore live outside of our identity of who God created us to be. If we were created to be good, anything we're doing that's trying to fit in often doesn't lead us to living in that goodness and making those kind of good choices. And so I look then at the fact that our story isn't bleak and we're not just left there, right? Like if we're born good and we're born into a broken, fallen world, and yes, there needs to be grace, and yes, there needs to be accountability. And how do we balance the two of those things in the midst of being, once again, created in goodness and living in brokenness? I would say it comes back to Jesus. If I'm honest, like the balance of that looks at Jesus. And you asked specifically how we do that for ourselves. I think it's the same for ourselves as it is in how we extend grace and accountability to others. It's the same. And I would say, what did Jesus do? How did Jesus live? Think of every conversation that he had with every person that he interacted, whether it was the disciples, whether it was the woman at the well, whether it was the man born blind or the man with leprosy. I mean, anybody. Name the story, name the account. And his conversation with them was one context, trying to understand where they're coming from, what is their story, understanding the brokenness that has influenced how they see themselves, how they see others, and how they see God, which is the whole preface of what we're trying to do here with communion. That's just a taste of what's waiting in the full episode. Want more?
Head over to Come.Union.substack.com. It's free, and it's where we drop all the good stuff. Full episodes, bonus thoughts, and some behind-the-scenes real talk.
Hit the subscribe button here too so you can stay in the loop. We'll meet you over on Substack.